Welcome to this video. As you can tell by the San Francisco trip report video on this channel, I've been to San Francisco. Together with Manuel, I was able to join Udemy Live, which is Udemy's conference for instructors, and there I fortunately was also able to participate in a panel where some of Udemy's instructors basically share how they became Udemy instructors, how they handle course creation, and so on. I'm happy to share the questions I got and my answers with you in this video. I hope you'll enjoy it.
Awesome. So let's listen to a little bit of who's on our panel today. I'm going to have each of our panelists actually introduce themselves by sharing a little bit about what they were up to before Udemy, and then also if you guys can share a story or so of one of your students. I think it's always interesting to hear a little bit about that.
So I'm Max, and just as many of my students I teach, I'm actually not a web developer who learned it in college, but I'm a self-taught web developer. I do teach web development now on Udemy, but before I started doing that, I worked in a consultancy because I studied business administration. And just as many other of my students, I decided that this is not the job I want to do for the end of my life. So I quit that, took the knowledge I built up since I was 13 when I learned web development on my own, and started working as a freelancer. And as a side project, I started building up a YouTube channel because I thought it would be interesting to share some of the knowledge I got and share some of the issues I know as a self-taught developer. And the YouTube channel worked out pretty well. So then I thought, well, why don't I also do the same on Udemy and try creating a course where I teach people web development, and that is how I got started. And the cool thing about teaching on Udemy is the interaction you actually have with all the students, and there are both memorable moments which are kind of a bit weird and also pretty awesome. So a weird moment, for example, was a student who actually would leave thousands of questions in the Q&A section, basically criticizing every single lecture I do and mentioning this is wrong, and I replied to every question and said, well, that's not wrong because of this, and I explained how it is, and then why I explained it the way I did in the lecture. And at the end of it, he left a 5-star review, which was pretty amazing. A totally cool experience was when I went to vacation in Greece, and I kind of dropped that in an announcement I sent a week earlier. And then people started creating Q&A threads where they said, hey, Max is on vacation, so we should probably help him out and answer questions in Q&A so that he has a nice vacation. It was pretty awesome. So,
Hey, future TA there.
that was a real big help, yeah.
So, Max, I'd love for you to start us off. Can you tell me a little bit, just the first point right here, how do you think about selecting what course you're going to create next for your course offerings?
Sure. Now, since I would teach web development, and it might be different for other areas, but there, I do actually work as a developer still, not taking new projects, but I still develop a lot, side projects, and so on. And so I still am active in the community, and you get a feeling for what's coming up, what's trending, and especially for me in the front-end framework world, a lot is changing, or a lot has changed over the last years, and it's that staying active and building new projects all the time, or diving into discussions on Stack Overflow and so on, which gives you a feeling for what's discussed, what's coming up, what's interesting, what people want to learn. And you also get feedback by your students once you have them, but if you don't have them, it's really just that diving into the communities you can access for free. You can look up YouTube channels on tech and see what they are teaching. And that's super interesting to see and to know, and to have a look at what's coming up, what's hot, and what's changing, and what you might want to cover. And then you can use tools like Udemy Insight tool, which was launched a few months ago, I guess, or weeks ago, which is really great for seeing how that is covered on Udemy and which opportunities you have there. And you're not always the first one to create a new course. There are areas where there already are courses, successful courses. But then you can go further than that. It's not just a topic, it's also the kind of course you can cover a niche, like focus on a specific aspect, like security, or just build a full stack course when you talk about web development, or just a front-end area, reach out to APIs. So that's something, and you can also differ by the course length. If there is like a 30-hour course, you might want to do the 10-hour one, which is like the compact version or focuses on one area, or you do the long one if it isn't there yet. And this is basically how I approach it. And you have to be pretty flexible there because things change rapidly, or a new course is coming up and then you need to change the one you planned. But that's also part of the course creation process. It's not like set in stone when you write your first curriculum. It's not necessarily what you end up at the end of the road.
Can you give a few examples of some sites or that you actually
Yeah, sure. For example, Angular, my first bigger course which I created. I tried it out on YouTube, and I saw that there I gained a lot of traction with the videos, even though my channel was relatively small. So it was not coming from my subscribers, but actually from new persons visiting my channel. And YouTube is a great area to try out topics because it's free to bring up a video, and if you're getting a lot of views, especially if you don't have a big audience, it's probably a hot topic. And then I decided to do something there and create a course. And then I created more courses on Angular in the future because you get that feedback and you see what's interesting there and how you can diversify that. That would be example for the first course I started with.
How does Stephen or Max or Mosh, how do you guys set expectations with students about answering questions?
Two things I do is, for one, I try to really encourage students to also answer questions on their own, so they help each other, because for one, that really helps them, because they learn more if they answer questions instead of just asking. It's always easy to ask, but hard to answer. And another thing I do for questions which come up very often, because you typically get like, let's say, 70% or 60% of the questions you get are questions you've gotten before. And for me, I basically just have a Slack channel where I paste in the answers I gave in the past, and I just pull them out or have the links to the original Q&A thread where I did answer this, so that I can quickly point them to the right resource or to the right answer. And that also frees up some time.
Maybe this is for everybody. Quickly curious the mechanics of how you create the course. Things like what screen capture tools, or how do you get that quality? One of the things I've had with Excel, for instance, is low quality when I was trying to do capture the screen image. So how do you guys do that? Get rid of all of the clutter so you can really just focus on the content and not the tools themselves. But what tools are you using to create it specifically? Not the coding, but the videos.
Yeah, I actually have a bit of a more complicated setup, and I believe it's worth it because I do put my head in a lot of videos, actually, at least at the beginning section, because I find it important that people don't just have a screen to look at, but also see who's teaching them. And it doesn't have to go through the full course, because that, I'm with Stephen there, becomes very cumbersome quickly and might not be worth the effort. But now, since you ask for specific tools now, I found it's very different on a Mac or on Windows, actually. On Mac, it's super simple. I use ScreenFlow there. It's super easy to get started. You basically press a button and you can record it. You can record the audio with it. You just need a good microphone. And regarding the editing, I do actually put quite some time into post-production because I want to have clean cuts and I want to have unnecessary errors in there. Adding a call out from time to time might be worth it. With I use Adobe Premiere and After Effects, but of course there are also free tools or there are cheap tools you can use. On Windows, it's actually a bit more difficult. I recognize to get a good screen quality, especially on Windows 10. Don't know why, but turned out it was a bit more difficult. It's a little bit of a mess to get it to look good. But there are free tools like OBS, Open Broadcasting Software. It's totally free. It also works on Mac. And you just, searching for settings for screen recording turned out well there, because you can just search for best setup for, let's say, 720p or 1080p protection, and then use them. And don't mess around too much with the settings, because it's easy to get a bad picture. But as Stephen said, you just need a good picture and not like perfect calibration for everything. That's basically what I have to add there.
Hey, for dinner, I have another question, but how much, percentage-wise, you talked about the bobblehead, how much do you feel you do? You said you put your head in it, so yeah. 10%, 15%, I mean, what do you find is working? And that's not always my original question, but you can spark.
Yeah, it really depends on the course. I do have courses where I only have my head at like the beginning and the end of each section, where I lay out the module and then summarize it. In other courses, I have my head in every single video, but over time I also recognize that might be a little bit too much. Also, some students don't like it because it can be distracting. So typically what I try is I try to do it at the first section of the course, because there is where most students are still with you and watch the course, and there it can be a real benefit. And I still want to engage them at the beginning and end of every section. So basically, when I do a summary, I want them to be able to see myself, because I typically don't have that much on the screen there. Can add some PowerPoint slides, but in the end, you want to be able to communicate with your students there, and for the same for the course roundup. So that is what I try to do there. And percentage-wise, it then adds up like maybe only 5 to 10%, but the parts where you do it is important.
Got it. My actual question, though, when I just had this, so how much time and how do you approach the sample projects? Not the sample code snippets. I mean, we're talking about researching new stuff, and sure, you can get little snippets, but it sounds like, and I guess I assume everybody has like some kind of sample project, but as you go along to do another one, how do you approach that? To me, that's a vexing point for me to figure out, do I keep creating new sample projects? What do I leverage from, and how do I come up with a whole cohesive project for one class?
I follow the same approach Rob mentioned earlier. I think about the topics I want to cover in the course, and then I think about projects where I could fit them all into, or as many features of the language or framework or whatever I'm trying to teach that fit into one single or 2 or 3 projects. And I think about real life websites, like Facebook. You can try building a simpler clone of that. Of course, not put all the functionalities in there, but have projects students recognize, then build it on your own, see if you can fit all the stuff or on the content of the course into it. And that's basically how we build it up. And with it, you also hit pain points or things where you recognize, oh, I should definitely cover that in the course too, because it's going to be difficult to implement, or we need some additional knowledge there. And that is how I typically approach that. And then I just build it. I build it. That takes obviously a couple of days, weeks, depends on the project. And then I build it again throughout the course. Sometimes I even deviate there if I see, oh, that would be interesting to cover too. But that's typically how I approached it.